my name is Winnie. Welcome to my life's journey. And today I want to talk about my relationship with my mother. And to be honest, it makes me a bit sad. And of course, it makes me a bit sad because she died before I even got a chance to forgive her, and even for us having that conversation. But for me, this is how I'm looking at it. If I keep that story, then who is it helping? So it makes me a bit sad, to be honest. And I want to talk about that relationship because we all hear about a mother wound, and I never really knew what a mother wound was until when I started my therapy, and I realized that there's something called a mother wound. So a mother wound is just basically that wound that you get when your mother is not either emotionally available to make you feel secure in who you are. But let me tell you, my mother left me at my grandmother's when I was about 3 months old, and she had to go to school, and we never really got a chance to have a relationship. And every time I remember she would visit, because I still have memories when I was a child, I was very young. And every time she would visit, I would hear my cousins call her Auntie Abby, and I would also find myself calling her Auntie Abby as well. So, until one time, a cousin of mine started, laughing at me, and he was telling me, why are you calling her Auntie Abby and she's your mom? What is wrong with you? And that only increased the shame in me, and the guilt, because I wished, I was comfortable calling her mom, but I wasn't. So I was comfortable calling her Auntie Abby. And there was my auntie who raised me, who it was very easy for me to call her mom. And of course, that would also bother my mom. And what happened is, I grew up with, obviously I was raised by my grandmother, and my grandmother also was not, exactly emotionally available, because we were many of us. So she couldn't, have divided herself to meet all our emotional needs. And now that I understand also her own story, her mother was also, my grandmother's mother was also emotionally unavailable. So that is how I actually learned that the wound actually goes through different generations. And you see, my grandmother was trying to feed all of us, trying to meet all our physical needs, that she couldn't give us, the emotional support that we needed. And of course, now my own mother was also lost in her own, life. And when I came to live with her, there was that disconnection. We had not stayed together. So between the age of 3 months up to around 14, that is the time I was with my grandmother. And of course, my grandmother did not give us the support, that love, care, that, security, that tenderness. It was not there. It was just survival for the fittest. I don't know. It was really tough. And I remember Churchill joking in Churchill's show, either it was Churchill or one of the comedians, saying that when you're a child and you're walking and then you hit your foot on a stone, instead of your parents telling you, I'm sorry, they would just tell you, pani woni yo mawe, and that is how my life was. Let me speak for myself. It was like a crime to fall down. It was a crime to feel pain. It was a crime even to express your negative emotions. At you're angry for who? You'll be beaten. So there was no room for you to be angry. And then, of course, also when I came to stay with my mom, it was still the same, because one thing I realized is that when my grandmother is the one who raised my mom, so my mom was also not in a space to offer me the security I needed to even to deal with my negative emotions. She couldn't. And of course, my grandmother was extra critical. She used to just call out everything and anything. And of course, I also realized that when I came to live with my mom, it was the same. It was kind of like an extension of my grandmother. A lot of things she would become very extra critical, and then you'd wonder, does it mean that everything I do is wrong? There were things she didn't like about me. There were things I didn't like about her. It was really not the best environment. And then the other thing I also realized is that, so when I came to live with my mom, she had just left her marriage, and she was obviously going through different things, and emotionally she was a wreck. And sometimes I would feel that it is our work to manage her emotions, because sometimes when she comes and she's not happy, we would, we're the ones who would pay, because she wouldn't talk to us. And I remember so many times my mom coming from work and never talking to us. You would even tell her hi, and she would answer back hi. Just the energy was not inviting. It was not the best. And of course, like I read the letters I read here, if you've not watched that video, please, there's a video I shared on the letter my mom wrote before she died. My mom was, if you look at the letters and everything she was saying, she was also lost in her own world. And I think she had gone through a lot, and she did not know also how to process, because at the end of the day, our parents are humans also. So, and I'm only saying this because I've gone through the process of healing. I'm sure if I was talking about this when I had not gone through the process of healing. I wouldn't be saying what I'm saying. So I just want to also empathize with anyone else who's still in the process of healing. So take your time. So it was very hard for my grandmother, who raised me up to the age of 14, to be empathetic with me. And that, of course, made me also become, just thinking that, if you fall down, it's your fault. I mean, it was hard for me to tell someone else, sorry. And again, sometimes also when our parents have suffered emotional or physical abuse, and so many times I've realized that these abuses don't exist in isolation. Abuse doesn't exist in isolation. So if you suffer physical violence, chances are you will also suffer emotional, abuse as well. So my mom had gone through domestic, violence, physical abuse, and I think it had affected her. So it was hard for her to be there for me. Even by the time I came to live with her, it was very hard for her to be there for me. And now I understand. After many years after she died, I understand. And because the only reason I understand is because I went through my own healing journey. If you are a parent who is just busy with your own interests, with your own work, chances are your children will have an emotional wound or a mother wound. Because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, children just are looking forward to have that connection with their parents. I mean, all of us want to be connected, and especially our children in this case, because they're looking forward to connect with their parents. And most of the time, if the mother is always busy, chances are your children will end up with a mother wound. My mother, on the other hand, was not really busy, but she was available, but she was not emotionally in a space where she could be there for me. That is how I felt. And also the other thing I realized is that, of course, when she went through her own emotional and physical abuse, it also affected her own esteem. So a mother who's affected negatively, it's hard for them to be there for their own children. And that's why so many times I tell people, if you're going through emotional abuse, the best thing you can do for your children is to leave, because they need a healthy mother. Okay? They don't need a mother who has lost high esteem and all that. Anyway, then of course, if there's any untreated mental health condition like depression, you'll find that your parents or your mother may not be there fully there for you. I remember, I think my mom was in a space where my mom used to have so many ideas. She would take us different places. Let's do lunch here, but emotionally, she was not in a place where she could, offer love and nurturing, especially for me, because she had given me up to my grandmother and then coming to live with her. I don't know, sometimes I kind of felt like she was feeling guilty or maybe ashamed. I don't know. The other thing that also causes the mother wound is when the mother is alcoholic or even now abusing drugs. So for me, I realized, so even before I knew what a mother wound was, I realized that my esteem was not, where it needed to be. I always, second guessed myself, of course, and because my mother was not there for me at an emotional level, I kind of felt that my emotions were all over the place. I didn't know what to do with my emotions when I'm feeling angry, when I'm feeling resentful. I did not know what to do with those emotions. I would just, rant and go all out with those emotions. And it was not easy. When my mom was alive, it was not easy for me to go to her, to talk to her, and to tell her what I was feeling. It was hard. I used to just feel like it was impossible. So I would keep everything inside of me, okay? And then the other thing also that I dealt with when I realized that I had a mother wound is I just felt nervous around my mom. We would sit down with my mom, but I would just feel like I want to say things to make her feel good, to please her, and at my expense, because at that point, some of them I didn't even mean them. I was just saying to manage her emotions so that she doesn't get angry or anything like that, or even for her to feel like I'm not a burden. I used to just be nervous around her. And the one thing I don't know if I've mentioned on video, but the one thing I always share with my friends is that my mom and I were movie buddies. The only time we would sit together is when we were watching movies, especially for long periods of time. Because at least when watching movies, we're just in the presence, but no one is talking to the other. So we couldn't connect, but we could watch a movie together. So it's quite interesting that I remembered that later. And that is before my mom died. Even by the time my mom went to hospital the second time and then she died, we were actually watching Grey's Anatomy. And that is how I stopped watching Grey's Anatomy. Because for me, it reminds me of my mom, The other one also, of course, is when your mother is going through stuff. Sometimes it's hard for them to be there for you. And that can cause you, a mother wound. And sometimes when our parents are struggling, it's hard for them to offer us any other kind of support. And I would see that from my grandmother. She was not the well off financially, and the way she was raising us. And I'm talking about my mother and my grandmother interchangeably, because they were the mother figures I had in my life, both of them. So I cannot talk about my mother without talking about my grandmother. But of course, one day I'll talk about my relationship with my grandmother. But today I want to focus more on my mother. I remember just feeling a low self-esteem, looking for validation in all the wrong places, trying to, people please, to try and gain your way into, what people feel about you, what people think about you. You want to kind of influence so that they can think about you in a positive light, and not in a negative light. And I really struggled with my self-esteem at some point, Then the other thing also that I realized is that though I lacked, emotional awareness. I was just, if I feel angry, I would just rant and go all out, all the way into the anger and react in different ways that I couldn't, and I kind of felt that I didn't have, any control over how I was feeling, especially the anger and the resentment that I felt. And I remember at a certain point in my life, I don't know, there are people who, when they watch this video, they'll remember this instance. I used to tell the people around me that when I react in anger, I'll pay 1,000 bob. So I paid until I got tired, and then I realized that it is deeper than just a feeling. And that is when I realized that of course, many years later, I realized that I had a mother wound. The other one was I just used to feel angry and resentful, So this, like I said, this usually happens when, sometimes mothers are the ones who tell you it's okay. They give you that security. I did not have that. So for me, just feeling angry meant going all out and lashing out at people, and, and that was really, really chaotic, if you ask me, because it would end up this, hurting me, hurting other people. I mean, it was not worth it, really. But it was what I was feeling at that point. So I just want to honor that journey also as well, even as I'm talking about this. And then, of course, there was that inability to self-regulate or to self-soothe. Sometimes when you've not been raised by your own mother, or even a healthy female representation of your mother, what happens is when you have a person who is not, they don't even know how to regulate themselves, what happens is they cannot help you to regulate yourself. And not having a mother in my life, or I had my grandmother who was very not available emotionally, and now I had my mother who was physically not available. Also, that means that she was not there for me at all. So that meant also that I had to look for, things outside of myself to self-soothe. I would, go play. I used to love playing when I was a child. And playing is not in itself bad, but there was no way I would run away from the emotions that I was feeling, because I just did not want to feel them anymore. So I would feel, uncomfortable, the way you can feel, let me give an emotion. I can feel maybe I hit something and I feel embarrassed. I would not process that feeling. I would want to run away from it. I remember there was a day I was working in Nairobi, CBD, then I fell down. Kenya Cinema. And I remember just waking up and running away, literally running away. And then I was like, why am I, this was a time I was in campus. And I was like, why am I running away? So that is what I'm talking about. You feel embarrassed about usual things that happen to you, and you can't, even when people tell you sorry, it feels like they're embarrassing you. You don't even want them to say sorry, I don't know who will relate to this, but this used to happen to me. And then that is when I realized that I did not know how to self-regulate myself, especially when I feel embarrassed, when I feel the uncomfortable emotions. I did not know how to self-soothe. And this also makes people go into alcoholism, into masturbation, into pornography, because you're looking for the regulation outside of yourself. So you're looking for other things to fill you up when you feel the void, when you feel unhappy. When the other one is that relationship aspect, that ability to manage relationships. I struggled with managing relationships, and especially nurturing relationships that are healthy, because I used to just be with friends who would gossip about me. I used to be around people who would hurt me, but I didn't even have the strength to tell them or even to walk away. But I was just building resentment inside of me. And for some of us, we've had both mother wound and father wound, and I'll talk about the father wound, in the future. But today, let me just talk about the mother wound. And I mean, that is the point where I realized that there was a lot going on inside of me that I needed to deal with. And of course, I never learned to trust people, because the people in my life, my primary caregivers, were mean-spirited. They were abusive, verbally. They were abusive emotionally. They were abusive physically. And it was hard for me to think that I can just come and meet people who, would love me for me, And it was hard. It was hard because I would just feel someone is out to hurt me, you know. And it was hard for me to have a secure attachment. There's also something I learned about secure attachment and insecure attachment, which one day I'll talk about. But for today, let me just say that I didn't have a secure attachment. I would feel, you know, when I call a person, they don't pick. I would feel they're not my friend. They don't want to talk to me. They are not good people. I would just think of many other things that were not even true. You know, my brain was anxious throughout, and I would feel like I wanted to, I would even write a person a message and to say, you're no longer my friend because I called you and you're not picking. I mean, it was messed up. It was really, really messed up. But when I started my journey now to therapy, and that's why therapy for me will always be necessary. And I know there are Christians who believe that therapy is not, the people who believe that as a Christian, you cannot be a Christian and still go to therapy. I think otherwise. I mean, I respect those thoughts, but for me, I feel otherwise. I can still have Jesus and still go to therapy. And that is what I did. So this was a tough one to do. So otherwise, God bless you. Have a fantastic, fantastic time, and see you soon.